What if I told you that 23 years ago, a 6-year-old girl was murdered in her house, and the only suspects in the case lived with her and still have not been arrested?
So we're talking about a little girl by the name of JonBenet Patricia Ramsey. She was an American child beauty queen who was killed at the age of 6 in her family's home in Boulder, Colorado on Christmas night, 1996. The crime is still unsolved and remains an open investigation with the Boulder County Police Department. Now, we're basically going to kick this around a little bit and talk about what we think might have happened. Obviously, we're just going based on 23-year-old evidence, but the fact is that this case remains unsolved for many, many years, and it's not just that the Ramseys were a rich family that could, put this all behind them. The police department for the Boulder Police Department, they botched a lot of things in this case, beginning with what we always talk about, which is the 7 S's of crime scene investigation. The first thing you do at a crime scene is to secure the crime scene, and they did not do that. And that was one of the things we teach. One of the things we teach you in forensics is if you're not going to secure the crime scene, a whole lot of stuff is going to get messed up along the way, and you're not going to know what evidence is the evidence of the crime or evidence of just some random person walking through the crime scene. So a lot of the blame falls on the Boulder Police Department, among others, but we're going to basically just go through the evidence here and tell you what we think.
Yeah, so the first piece of evidence is the 911 call, and before Mr. Smith plays it, I just want to bring up that Patsy herself was a former beauty queen, had some acting experience, and you might, after knowing that and you listen to it, you might think it's more staged and well trained in this 911 call. So go ahead, Mr. Smith.
So before I play this, imagine you are a distraught mother. You've come downstairs to make coffee or whatever in the morning. You got up, you find a ransom note at the bottom of your stairs, realize that your daughter is missing. You don't know where she is, and your first instinct is to, of course, call 911. But see if you can pick out some things in this 911 call. I'm going to share the screen here so you can see what we're doing.
What's going on there, ma'am? We got kidnapping. Explain to me what's going on, okay?
There's a note left in our daughter's gone.
A note was left in your daughter's gun? How old is your daughter?
6 years old. She's gone. 6 years old.
How long ago was it?
I don't know. I took down the note. And my daughter's
Is it the same chipper?
what?
Is it the same chipper?
I don't know. There's a ransom note here.
It's a ransom note?
It says SBTC.
Okay, what's your name? Are you Kathy Ramsey? I'm the mother. Oh my God. Okay, I'm sending a message over, okay? Do you know how long she's been gone?
Oh, I don't. Please, we just got out. Is she right here? Oh my God, please.
Okay, well,
Is somebody?
I am, honey.
Please.
Take a deep breath,
Please,
okay?
hurry, hurry, hurry.
Kathy.
Okay.
So you see a bunch of things there. There's a bunch of wording that she used during the call. Of course, did she hang up?
Jefferson County 911.
Yeah, she says like, I am the mother. I think that's kind of odd. She only refers to her daughter by her name, JonBenet, one time. And not just the wording, but the fact that she hangs up on the 911 operator without getting a lot of details or anything is also a little suspicious to me.
Yeah, and the 911 call and the ransom note kind of go hand in hand. It certainly seemed that some aspects of the 911 call were possibly staged. But when you get into the ransom note, you're dealing with a whole nother situation. Most ransom notes are very short. This one was 3 pages long. There was lots of wordiness in the ransom note. I mean, if you're doing this and you are a perpetrator, you're an intruder going to kidnap a little girl, you're probably not going to write a 3-page ransom note.
Also, 3-page ransom note on stationery from the house,
Yep.
A pen from the house. That means you're staying in the house longer. Easily, you could be found in the house.
Yeah. I mean, and there has been recreations of how long it would take someone just to write down this ransom note, and we're looking at several minutes. We're looking at, and then you add into the thing where maybe you don't know exactly what to write. You got to think about what to write. You're looking at a half hour, easy, to write this ransom note.
Yeah, but unfortunately, those are not the only strange things in this case. The other strange thing is a flashlight. If you look at the crime scene here, flashlight, big mag light right in the middle of the kitchen, which, maybe other people do keep flashlights right in the kitchen in case there's a power outage. I mean, they did have a big mansion. They were a rich family, so maybe this is something that they would normally have around. But the flashlight had no fingerprints on it at all. The batteries on the inside, which normally the texture or of the batteries usually are great for picking up fingerprints, also wiped completely clean, had no fingerprints on it whatsoever. And the part of the flashlight here, like the head of the flashlight, I guess you would call it, did match up pretty significant to the impression on JonBenet's skull right here, suggesting that blunt force trauma, maybe from something heavy like a big maglite flashlight, could cause that. But again, the weird thing, like the 911 call, like the ransom note, was that, as you see here, it's hiding in plain sight.
Plain sight. And that's the kitchen. That's like the kitchen counter. And going back to some of the mistakes that were made by the Boulder Police Department, they did not secure the crime scene, and shortly after, they had all these friends coming over to console them. They were in their house, and then at the end of all of this, the question became, well, whose flashlight is it? And the Ramseys said it wasn't theirs, and the police said it wasn't theirs, and all the people that came over to console the Ramseys, which are, of course, contaminating the crime scene, they said it wasn't theirs. And it was wiped down. How did it get there in the first place? Someone had to have touched it to put it there. So it's very odd that the flashlight, again, 911 call, sounds like it might have been staged. I am the mother. Who says that? I am the mother. It just, the 3-page ransom note, the flashlight, that belongs to no one apparently, and was wiped down, wiped clean, even the batteries, no fingerprints whatsoever. A mag light is very easy to get fingerprints on, especially batteries with a smooth surface. So, you know, someone either had to wipe that down or be touching it with gloves. So maybe that was the murder weapon, and maybe it was left there possibly by an intruder, but it just seems odd that it's there all day long and no one realizes that. You know, what is this thing? Whose flashlight is this? If there's a flashlight on the kitchen counter all day long and it's not mine, I'm going to notice it at some point during the day.
Yeah, I think John Ramsey did say that he did receive a mag light of some kind as a present or a gift at some point. So he said, you know, that could possibly be his, but he wasn't 100% sure.
Okay, so hopefully you can see it here. This is downstairs in the basement in another room. JonBenet's body was found in a different room down in the basement, but this was found in the basement. Once again, you know, nobody really claims the suitcase. They said that it wasn't, the Ramsey family said that it wasn't there before, but notice it's right under the window. Some theories are that the intruder used this to step up and get out the window. There was also some theories of maybe that was the plan from the intruder. It was to put JonBenet in this suitcase and then bring her with him or her, whoever the intruder was. And obviously something happened that changed those plans. If that was the case, something happened to change those plans, because she was not in the suitcase, although there was some DNA evidence of her in the suitcase. So that's another question. Did he put her in the suitcase, try to get her up out of that window? Did something happen? Did she wake up? Did he accidentally kill her? Who knows? But this suitcase is a major piece of evidence that I think, if you're going to go with the intruder theory, it's a big piece of evidence for that, but also it could be a piece of evidence for the staged situation, because they're going to say, well, we need evidence that there was an intruder here. We're going to put this suitcase here to make it look like he either, stepped up on it or whatever.
So, yeah, I mean, the intruder theory is one of the theories. It's a possibility. I know that the police department tried to say there was no footprints found on the outside, and yet there was fresh snow on the ground. But the thing was that the pathways around the Ramsey mansion were plowed, were like shoveled, so the intruder, if they did come in, could walk on the pathway.
There was cement, so there was no snow on the cement walk around the house, so you're not going to see any footprints on cement.
So one of the other theories, though, is that it was somebody in the house. It was either the Ramseys themselves, either Patsy Ramsey or John Ramsey, or possibly Burke Ramsey. And one thing I want to point out is that when they did the autopsy on JonBenet Ramsey, they did find stomach contents, and they found pineapple and stomach contents, which does correlate with something that was at the crime scene, and that was that there was a bowl of pineapple with some milk found and a glass of tea. Now, Patsy said, though, that before going to bed, because they were about to leave the day after Christmas to go to one of their other homes, I think in Michigan or something, so they were going to be jumping on one of their private planes to fly there, that she had to go do some last-minute packing. Patsy did. So she fixed Burke a bowl of pineapple, glass of tea, and then left them alone. What I find interesting is that if JonBenet was in bed, how would she have pineapple in there? Unless she woke up, came downstairs to get a snack, saw Burke there eating, grabbed the piece of pineapple. This also goes with the situation that if you look at, again, the crime scene, there's the mag light there right in the middle of the counter with all the food. So could JonBenet have grabbed a piece of Burke's pineapple? He got mad. We know there was a lot of jealousy between the two of them. JonBenet, being the beauty pageant queen, was the favorite child. Burke was kind of an afterthought. She always seemed to get more presents, get more attention. Maybe she just received more presents for this Christmas. Did she grab a piece of his pineapple and he thought that was the last straw, no pun intended there, and grabbed the flashlight off the counter and hit her over the head? Not hitting her over the head to kill her, hitting over the head, just be like, I'm tired of you always taking my stuff, JonBenet. And that would explain why pineapple was in her stomach contents, and also explain the proximity of things like the flashlight, this bowl of pineapple, this tea, things like that. So I think we should get right into our opinions, who we think actually did it after we went over the evidence. Do you want to go first, Mr. Smith?
Sure. So I'm probably inclined to believe the Burke theory. Basically, most, if not all, the evidence fits into this theory, and it fits in pretty well. You've got two affluent parents. They're worried about their image, and they've just realized that one accidentally killed the other. We've got to like sort of cover this up. We've got to figure out how to basically make people believe that Burke had nothing to do with this. So they go into panic mode, and you know they're not dumb people. They're very smart people. Even in a panic situation, you've got the 3-page ransom note, which was in my mind clearly done to throw police off the case. You got the one thing that I'm hung up on, and I'll be very, very honest with you here. The one thing I'm hung up on is the fact that they had these, and it's not talked about very, very much, but the Ramseys had these, they were big Christmas type people with, decorating their house for Christmas. They did have these tours, Christmas tours. And the weeks leading up to JonBenet's death, they had literally thousands of people through their home for Christmas tours. Now, to you and I, probably that sounds very odd. But if you're affluent, you got a big house, you're decorating every room, people come in and look at all your decorations. It's kind of weird, but it was true. They actually have video of people. So that's the one thing that I'm struggling with here. I struggle with that, and I struggle with, if you're going to cover something, I get the cover up. We didn't even really talk about the garrote, which was that strangulation device. I have a hard time with the fact that one of the parents could do that, even if it was to throw police off the case. I just have a hard time believing that they're going to do this after the fact to their daughter to make it look like something that it wasn't. I struggle with those two, but I'm gonna go with the Burke theory and say that if he didn't kill her, he definitely had something to do with it. Burke did.
Yeah, I think when we're doing these videos for Smith, it'd probably be pretty interesting if we have different theories, but unfortunately for this first one, I totally agree with you based on the evidence and the plausible circumstantial evidence. I also think the Burke theory is the most logical one. I think he accidentally killed his sister.
Yeah, I think it was an accident.
And I think it was a huge tragedy that he killed his sister, but I think his parents, because of protecting the brand, protecting the shield, they had a lot of money and reputation at stake, and they didn't want to lose 2 children that night because they already just lost one, that they definitely helped to cover it up. I think that the long history of Burke being jealous of JonBenet, just it all kind of piled up into one culmination that night. I mean, you hear from gardeners, you hear from other people around the Ramseys that Burke was violent towards his sister, that he did, that he was jealous. He suffered from a thing called scatatosis, which is where he would spread his own fecal matter all over stuff. And there was reports that even Christmas candy that she received that day, that he put some balls of fecal matter on that too. So again, he was definitely very jealous of her. So I think this was just the end result of years and years and years of the animosity between him and his sister.
Yeah, one thing we didn't mention also, which kind of points to the cover-up theory, or the Burke cover-up theory from the parents, was that when the police did say, let's search the house, John Ramsey went immediately, like a beeline, right down to the basement, down to the exact room that she was in. It sort of looked like, to everybody, all the police that were there, sort of looked like he already knew where the body was. So, and then he moved the body, and I don't know if he realized that if I move the body several times, that's going to be harder. So lots of lots of mistakes that were either the police department made or the police department let happen that they knew probably shouldn't happen. But you're dealing with, again, very affluent members of the community that might be treated differently than your average Joe.
Absolutely. So I think that wraps up for today. This has been another case by case by the Serial Thrillers featuring the JonBenet Ramsey case. And Mr. Smith, what do we always say?
We solve them all till we solve them all. We'll see you guys next time.